Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the next episode of the Immergence Show, where we discuss the latest and greatest in emerging tech and immersive experiences. I'm Nico Farah, and my co host is Noreen Sullivan. I'm a creative technologist and have been building retail tech solutions. Most recently, we stepped into these emerging tech and immersive experiences at our company Chief Metaverse Officer. And we're also working on a B2C solution that will be launching soon, and it's so exciting. And Noreen comes from a wide variety of experiences in the field of sociology and cultural anthropology, and she has worked with several brands and tech companies to create the best experiences for them. So the conversation we're having today is coming from a lot of insights and experiences that we both had that we would love to share with you guys and hopefully help you improve the experiences you're creating for the end users, whether you are helping brands to achieve those or you have your own brand and business that is looking to use these technologies to improve these experiences. With these digital experiences and digital age that we are in, we have the opportunity to touch the user journey in several points. With social media, with our website, with e-commerce platforms and different marketplaces. There's several touch points in the user journey that we can now get in touch and modify the experience and have an impact. However, this can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on how you look at it. So it could be good because we can have more influence and kind of share more about who we are and what we do and resonate more with the user. On the other hand, it could be also a possibility that there's a lot more competition and noise. Now consumers and users have a lot more options in front of them, which wasn't as like this before. So, with consideration of this, both sides, we're going to look at these opportunities and challenges and look at what we can do to create the best experiences. And also, what are some of the good examples of companies who have done it right? To look at this and learn from them and hopefully improve what we're building. And also, creativity and using this type of technologies in the right way and having the strategy to win is important, and we will touch on that as well. All right, Noreen, I hand it off to you. Go ahead and tell us more.
Okay, so I want to talk about what a touch point is. The touch point is when a consumer interacts with your brand. And the phrase for touch points started before the internet. It came in the 1950s and 60s for the advertising age. And it used to be that you needed 7 touch points for a buy. So you would have like a billboard, you'd have an ad in a magazine, you'd have the end cap at a store. So you wanted people to constantly see, and so the science was like 7 was the golden number in prior to the internet. Now your touch points can be much shorter, and the avenues to trust can be much shorter, or you can have them just a lot more rapidly, because you could have so sometimes when people are really following an influencer, you have that one touch point where it's an unboxing and someone just goes to buy, but the influencer has made all those touch points because they're talking to them every day, right?
Mhm.
So then you're riding on top of that. Whereas when you're creating your own touch points, that's a different journey. And when we talk about the customer journey, we're talking about before they know about you through becoming a repeat customer, right? So what kind of content you need before they know about you, what when they know about you, when they're doing research about it, and when they finally buy them. Everybody kind of knows that in marketing, like, yes, the customer journey. But so there was a Harvard Business Review study a year or two ago where it showed that companies that scored 5 points or higher on the customer journey satisfaction had double the revenue growth in 3 years compared to 5 points or lower on a scale of 1 to 10.
Wow.
So it really, really matters how those interactions go. And there's a reason that has nothing to do with your content. It has everything to do with human brains. So human brains absorb negative information much faster than positive information. That's why you needed 7, and now maybe you need 4 positive interactions to get someone, or even in friends, like to like you, or even in sales or anything that you do. And why is that? Well, if you burn your hand on the stove, or something bad happens to you, your brain automatically makes a neural pathway. This is part of our mammal response to things. Like it's much more important that you remember negative things than you remember positive things physiologically. So then that's why, to make a new little neural connection for something positive, it takes at least 4 interactions. So that number between 4 and 7 is how to get someone to feel positive about you. So like you look at the internet, you say, why is it so negative? Humans are naturally remember and interact with the negative more than they interact with the positive, just because your brain doesn't work like that. That's information that can be easily let go of. So how do you do that as a brand? And so the idea is you start to understand the customer journey and personalization. Nico knows a ton about personalization and how to have these experiences that are on different channels, but still have a consistent brand tone and voice. And then, the quality of the content and the design of the user experience, and what I call active listening skills, this proactive customer service. If people are having a conversation that is like something that they don't like, if you respond immediately, even before you're getting complaints, or just listening to the conversation, and be able to resolve it, and you're showing that you want to improve continually, then you get a higher satisfaction rate, which increases your sales growth. And you may say, oh, 2% doesn't matter, but 2% really matters. What do you think, Nico?
Yeah, of course. I mean, these all add up. This active listening and being proactive is important. I mean, last week we talked about AGI and how this, next generation of AI can even get to this level of having understanding of the context and being able to communicate with the users, with the consumers, and solve their problems. So, all of this can be eventually automated. And we will talk about different ways to tackle these now and potentially in the future. But some examples of like companies that are doing this right, that our audience probably already knows as well. Amazon is, one of the best in focusing on consumers and customers so much and personalizing everything. I shop a lot from Amazon for this, reason of convenience. Like, you can immediately have access to a lot of options. And even if you don't make the purchase right away, they will make constant recommendations to the range of what you were searching or what makes sense to your purchase history. So again, it's, before internet, as Noreen calls it, it was similar to like you going to a store and the store associate knows you so well that will recommend you the similar products that you always buy or you're interested in. So this level of getting to know the consumer so well that you can ease them into the decision making of the shopping is very important. And of course, people complain that Amazon killed shopping and improved buying. So it's not so much about like you going and hanging out in their app. It's more about like just satisfying what you are looking for specifically. But the overall convenience that they're providing, this one-click purchase that you can have, and just constant follow-ups and notifications you get on the pricing improvements and stuff like that, is just one example of like how you can improve the overall experience for the user, so they choose you over the competitors.
I want to interject here for a second. There's something really interesting about what you're saying about Amazon. There's, again, mindset wise, brain wise, there are different modes that we have when we're using the apps and the internet. And so they call it a browser because, we used to go, like you would go into a real store and you'd say, what are you doing? Or can I help you? And you say, no, I'm just browsing. I'm just going through it. So if you're in browsing mode, you're just kind of looking at things, you're scrolling. And if you're scrolling like this, you're saying yes. And if you're scrolling like this, like on Tinder, you're saying no. And actually, when you're doing those scrolling actions to say no, that increases your self-esteem, because you're saying no, you're rejecting increases your self-esteem, and then you'll eventually say yes. So there's things that are going on. But if you're in the browsing mindset, you're looking around. If you're there, so on the other side, sociologically, I call it a determined user. A determined user is doing what Nico is talking about. They want to, buy the dupe for the eyebrow gel, or something like that. They want to, buy a present for their 5-year-old nephew or something like that. So they're determined. They have a mission. If you put the little brain thing on when people are browsing, it lights up different areas than when people are being a determined user. So as a brand, building emotional connections and saying, okay, how do I capture people's attention when they're browsing? How do I stop the scroll and or feed them stuff? And then how do I, because there's nothing more annoying is when you're in the determined mode than to get just a bunch of random stuff. Whereas there's nothing more annoying when you're in the browsing mode and you just want to see stuff, being hit with a sales pitch. So as a brand, understanding that you need to kind of know if, that's kind of where some native advertising comes in. Like if they're on this platform, they're probably browsing. If they've come to the website, they're probably determined or whatever. So having a map of that in your strategy and to say, okay, the same person can come and have a different mindset, and how to get those emotional triggers going is a challenge, but it also can be really fun.
Yeah, and I think from the brand perspective or the marketplace perspective, you have the opportunity to convert the user from the browsing phase to determined phase, and I've seen that a lot happening to me. Like I'm just browsing, like looking into something, I'm not sure if I want to buy it, but then they give me such a good offer and there's a time limit on it. Then you're like, okay, maybe it's not that bad, and this time is going to run out in a few hours. Maybe I should just go with it. And obviously with Amazon, you can't return it anytime, and it's so easy to do it that you're like, yeah, of course, I'm just going to try it. These, like, I understand maybe for a very high price point, like luxury shopping, that's where you are having more separation between being in the browsing phase or being in the determined phase, because it's a bigger decision. But when you're talking about day-to-day items, I think the gap is smaller, so brands have more opportunity to like bring them from one side to the other.
Yeah, I think like when you're buying a car or you're buying electronics, or when you so understand that user journey. Is it a quick cycle? Is that your and then that's why there are things like BMW films and the different kinds of experiences and things to get that emotional engagement and that brand storytelling to make that conversion. And I do agree that probably the higher the price point, the more you have to be aware, and yeah, and know your customer, because if it's a financial trigger, like 10% off makes a big difference, or is it like you know bonus rewards, or even some sort of exclusive thing. It just depends. And so one of the things that we like to think about is like how to do that, and how to do that better with when we're consulting, and even building our own uh, platform. So it's
Yeah, I mean, technology can really help to like facilitate this whole process of getting to know the customer, because no human, can really absorb and analyze and memorize all this information about all this variety of, consumers that are handled by a brand or a marketplace. So that's where AI comes in. That's where technology comes in to really manage that, and then you layer it with this human touch, and you get the best outcome. So that's what, like, another example of that is Apple, right? We see how Apple is providing the best experience with this combination of omnichannel that they created with their stores. You have this very knowledgeable store associates that really take the time to talk to you and solve your problem. And you can even book the appointment online, do all the things. You can have all the information on their website, which is great. But then you can also go play with these devices in the store. So combination of great experience, physical and virtual. These all just gonna touch on different elements and points that Nori mentioned, and then provide the best outcome.
Yeah, I went to there's a Tesla store in San Jose that looks very much like the Apple store. So yeah, that the ability to go in somewhere and have this really strong brand experience in real life, and then you could also create a similar experience in metaverse or in different ways. So I think omni-channel is really important, and there's new channels that are emerging, and we want to understand how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, even if all brands want to create these in-person experiences, it's just never going to be as accessible and scalable. How many people can they fit in a physical store? And a lot of times we see these stores are not really for shopping anymore. Like in the Tesla store in Santa Monica or Santana Row, you see that they have the robot that is not even being sold. It's just, as you said, it's like the experience. They just want to build that image and memory and experience for you that this is who we are, this is what we use, even if it's behind the scene and it's not a still commercial purpose. So all of these are just going to build up this narrative of who they are, and just make it cool. And sometimes Instagram
and also it's a content opportunity. You see people taking pictures with the Tesla robot, or like doing something in the Apple store, or some even like boutique stores have like a wall to try and close and take a picture, like an Instagram kind of a wall to so then I think that one of the ways that they want to scale is to have the people do the scaling for them by sharing that experience, and then that becomes sort of a destination kind of thing. It's basically like old-fashioned PR, like the publicity stunt, like but instead of trying to get the newspaper reporters there to write about something that happened, you're trying to get individuals to socially share by creating a shareable experience.
Which is even more effective in many ways, because if you're hearing it from your sister or friend, you're much more trusting them versus a magazine that could have been paid for it.
Right. So yeah. So it's very interesting. So considering, okay, what's my offline experience, what's my online experience, what my determined experience, what my browsing, and it may seem like a lot, but that's why you make it you have the initiative and the strategy. Okay, this is what we're doing, and this is how that translates to each one of those channels, and that, proven by this Harvard study, is it really does have an impact on the bottom line. And so
Yeah. And just some quick other examples, like Zappos, a great shoe online store that, you can find all sorts of shoes, not always like all sizes and everything, but it's a great discounted store. We see that how much they provide customer experiences that are great. Like they allow for 365 days return and free shipping. Like with all of these, like you're almost like, even if I can't try the shoe because the fitting is so important, I'm willing to do it because I can always return it. So that's understanding the real consumers.
You can return it up to 300. You can return the shoes in a year,
Yep.
or any day of the week.
No, a year.
Just wear them for a year and send them back. Wow.
Well, no, I think there have ways to realize if you have been really wearing them. But this is assuming that you just, tried it and you didn't like it or didn't fit.
Okay.
But yeah, the overall idea of like just positioning yourself as a consumer and realizing what are the reasons for you to not purchase. For shoes is, oh, I don't know if it fits. For everything, if you understand their potential objections, then you can plan for that, which really helps with satisfaction and loyalty. Another example is the Starbucks. Noreen, do you use the Starbucks?
No.
But
I try to support local coffee shops. If I have to go to Starbucks, I'll go to Starbucks if I like really need coffee. But I'm just right now I'm really into Blue Bottle coffee. The local coffee, it's very strong. Yeah.
But anyways, Starbucks is famous in their loyalty program, how they simplified the whole process. You can, put money in your account, which some people say Starbucks is one of the, greatest banks in a way, because they're making so much money out of these people leaving their money ahead of time without giving an interest rate or anything. They're just putting the money in their accounts, and Starbucks is holding on to them, and then you can basically order anytime, and then you get rewards. They even had NFT launched, and they overall created this amazing experience that is super personalized. They even know based on we will get to more like how you can use AI, but based on how the weather is in your area, based on how that the store that you are near has the inventory, like based on all of these elements, and your previous purchase history and taste and all of that, like they do the job for you to make the right recommendations. And then when you're like on the app, you're just like, oh yeah, sure. Like it's like the person who works in the coffee shop like completely knows me and knows what exactly I want. So when you're at that level of personalization, it's really hard for a loyal customer to say no to, even if it's more expensive or not as good of a quality as other brands. You go with it because they already established this great convenient experience. So that's another really good one. And then IKEA. A big part of emerging tech is about AR, VR, and we talked about it before. But the fact, again, what is the objection of someone buying furniture? It's probably that they are not sure if it fits or it looks good on the aesthetics of the interior design that they currently have. So if we think about that objection, then this AR experience of being able to see the look and fit inside your home with this AR app is going to solve for a big part of this objection. and that's where they would be willing to make this purchase and go through the very intensive experience of installing the IKEA stuff.
Yeah, you had to build it yourself. But
Yes.
then, and also, IKEA is another one that makes their store a destination.
Right.
My friend, I happen to be having to live near an IKEA right now in Emeryville, and my friend was coming to town, and they're like, "Oh, we should go eat at IKEA," and I was like, what? But because it's like, but they were really excited to go to the IKEA store and just be in the IKEA store.
They
So
have good meatballs, I remember. I mean,
yeah, that was what my friend James wanted, was the meat, it was the Swedish meatballs,
yes,
and they have other things,
but
but
that's the most famous one.
that's the most famous one, and then sort of like a playground. So I really think that if you're talking about brands that do well, you're seeing that they have like a plan for all of these things that we're talking about. So there's a
Yeah,
destination, there's practical, and then experimental in different ways, and I think that that's really important,
yeah.
um, to begin to build that.
And I think to the point that you just mentioned is looking at the customer as a holistically, like, okay, these are family looking to buy furniture. What would the family going to experience if they're spending the weekend coming and shopping? They need to have something planned for their kids to have fun and not be complaining about being hungry. So that's why they allocate that top floor just for food and entertainment. So stuff like that is like thinking holistically, or like McDonald's being famous of like they also always have a playground in most of their locations, like stuff like that. It just beyond think a step beyond just that immediate purchase that you want them to do, how you can make that experience so special. So again, the touch points, that's what we're going back to. Another example is like Netflix. With Netflix, I personally, every time I want to watch a movie, the reason that I usually avoid watching it is because the time it takes to pick a movie is the hardest part. I'm very picky, but like one thing that Netflix really helps with is the fact that it gets to know your preferences, and depending on what has come recently and what you liked before, they tailor perfectly what you would want to check out next. That really removes that friction and brings more interest into the user wanting to be part of it. I have seen challenges with it when the whole family are using the same username.
I was gonna say that, because then it's like you have or roommates and stuff, or even if you like share, yeah, and then it's like, what is this nonsense? Like, who
But
was
I
like,
think they are learning a lot of these family plans. They also learned that this messes up with their algorithms, so they allow for like having up to 4 or 5 accounts, so you
right?
can have your own account and your own personalization. And another and last example I want to talk about before we move on to the next topic is the Nike example. I'm a big Nike fan in terms of like the not necessarily because of the quality of their products. I actually don't believe that's their differentiation. I think their differentiation is this holistic experience that they create for the athletes or people who want to be athletes. And one big thing that Nike believes in is that everyone is an athlete. They just need to be put into the right position and situation. And so I use Nike app. There's a Nike Run Club. There's Nike Training app. They have all sorts of tools that are free that you can use and encourages you to be more active. And when you are more active and you build this relationship with this brand, and you have the best of the best trainers providing great experience for you, then you will be remembering that community feeling, that feeling of attachment to the brand of Nike. And then when you go to the store and you're buying sneakers or any other equipment, then you're going to be like, yeah, probably I would do Nike because they also have something in their app that you can import your shoes, and kind of based on that you get more recommendations. So again, this looking at holistic, like Peloton is similar too. Like
What do
I
you mean import your shoes?
I haven't done it because I don't use Nike shoes right now, but apparently, or I think you can import some other brands too. But based on the information of the shoes that the model and everything that you're using, it will tell you like what your steps are gonna be and like the energy and stuff. I have to further explore it, but I noticed like in the running app that they have. You can import the shoes and it will give you further information and personalizes the experience for you.
And eventually they'll probably have data in the shoe itself.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed in the partnership with Artifact and all that, they're just getting more and more personalized in the experience. So yeah, this is completely.
Because I would think that the wear, because like I remember with my kids like being athletes, and one of my sons needed to have inserts because they have a very high arch, and when we went to the shoe store, the running store, I'm not sure which one it was. I don't think it was like Nike store itself, but the guy wanted to look at the shoe to see where it was like rubbed, like to know what to do with it. And so I don't know if they're doing that, but it would be interesting because like when you said import the shoe, I thought import like the data from the shoe. Oh, you're running this way, your shoe, you need to change.
Yeah, I don't think
smartwatch, but I don't think they have smart sneaks yet.
Well, I think it is in one of the like they launch a lot of different small drops, but probably in those advanced, high expensive, high priced items, but in the normal ones, no. But sensors are so easy to integrate to anything these days. So it is very likely.
Nike, if you're listening, we would love to do a sensor shoe campaign with you. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, there's like when you start to talk about the emerging tech and the and some of these things that we're talking about, these are old school strategies. Touchpoints has been around forever, but it changes. And how to make a touch point could be a physical touch point in a shoe that could provide it, or a touch point can be something that comes into your, that says, hey, stop scrolling, pay attention. Or it could be, that dumb spin the wheel and get a more of a discount thing, which I think that my feeling is that it's always the same discount.
I don't like it. Yeah, it's
I don't know, but some people love it, but it's like
Well, I prefer to get rewarded for what I do, depending on what I do, versus like randomly get something, which, as you said, you feel like they give it to anybody. That's why, like, even your reward system and gamification needs to be personalized, and that's missing if you're just doing those wheels. Personalization of like, oh, you did this, great, here is your reward. That is where you actually memorize it and do more of that good thing that they want you to do.
Right, and there are different ways, and we can talk about it another time, but there are different activities that cause different things, like a little oxytocin boost, a little serotonin boost, so like checking things
all
off.
Psychology. Yep.
Yeah, all psychology. And so there are some people who respond to that gambling and chance and lucky, like, oh gosh, I'm so lucky, I'm going to spend that right now. And some people but it's really basically understanding who your customer is and over time what those triggers are for them.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. Let's move on to what other factors we can look into. What about like social responsibility, environmental aspect? We had a whole session talking about social responsibility of tech companies and even brands. How do you think these can impact this overall customer experience?
Well, I think when you're aligned with your customer, right? Because when I'm talking about this with brands or working, I usually say, what's the why? And the Y is an acronym for We Hear You. So WHY, We Hear You. So if your audience really cares about transparency or cares about sustainability or social responsibility, you want to, in that listening part, to hear it and to respond, to create a touch point around whatever it is that is part of your brand's culture. So the way that I approach integrating social responsibility is that alignment and identity alignment. Identity alignment means that this is who I am. I buy this product because of X. One good example is the Honest Company. Like Jessica Alba had a baby. She's a very famous movie. Ingredients in the baby stuff that weren't necessarily good for the baby, and they weren't necessarily transparent about it. They put, they having things tested and saying, well, this isn't exactly this, and this isn't as pure as I thought it was. And so, so then she aligned the company and with her advisors for moms who really had that same, passion and caring and everything. And so understanding the people that you're serving and aligning with those social responsibility goals. Now, not everybody cares, like, for example, if we go back to Nike, I love Nike in so many ways, but on the social responsibility as far as like how things are made and what, the wages that are paid and all that kind of stuff in another country, like, oh, we're doing all this good on this side, but, on this side, in Apple too, in some ways, so then there's, but if the audience, and that becomes tricky with brands, right? So if that's not your core audience, you might not feel that pressure because people vote with their dollars, right? So it's based on how they spend their dollars and their time. They're spending time on your app. They're spending time. So you need to be listening to, really what they care about. But then if it's important to you and your brand and you can do, but it might not have the same sales impact, without that kind of alignment. So, understanding, alignment and where that alignment comes in terms of social responsibility. I think that, it is our responsibility as people who are developing technology to do better and consider things in a way that's better. And ultimately, it's up to consumers to make those choices.
Yeah, and we had a whole episode talking about social responsibility, so I encourage our audience to go check that out to dig deeper into this topic. But I think what's important to mention is that taking a very clear stance is the important part. Like, especially when we're talking about younger generation, they don't like to see that you're quiet when things happen in the world. They want to see more vocal consumer, specifically consumer brands that take a stance when a war happens, or where the environment is, the global warming and all these other issues, whether it's sustainability and other elements. So an example of that is Patagonia. They're famous for their sustainability practices. Their whole website and social media and stores and everywhere, they're just talking about how they care about the environment, and they're supporting and investing in, helping with, planting trees and going against deforestation. They encourage sustainable materials. They encourage repair. Like they had a program called Worn Wear. So, all sorts of things to just show to their consumers that the priority, even though they are a consumer brand and they are producing new products and they want you to sell more, to buy more of that, they still want you to be mindful of the impact that you're creating on the climate. And I think this people purpose planet thing came from them, as you know, becoming common later, and being, I think they're B Corp as well. And so with all of that, you're actually being very clear on where you are with these challenges that we see in the society and environment, and then take actions for it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the research behind that is this Bain and Company study that was in 2022. It said that those people who do that with the Gen Z and millennial consumers, there's a 31% higher loyalty factor, so that they would, when the stance is clear on social environmental issues and the ethical practices and digital experiences. It's interesting that that's becoming more and more important with actually, it's kind of bifurcated. It's also very important with the less so with the Gen Xers, but a portion of boomers that were the hippie environmentalists still here. So it's sort of, there's some brands that really speak to people in their 60s and in their 20s, and it's like, what, but those are value system based rather than age demographic based. So
right, because these generations, they want to align their purchases, their decisions with their values. So that's where when they go to the store, they don't just rely on what they have seen on advertisement. They also check if it matches with their values. So it's a different way of decision making. And again, know your customer and properly adjust to that. And that's why, really defining your brand is so important. Like before all of this, like, what is your mission and vision and values, because that's what defines who their target audience is. And you can broaden afterwards, but eventually that's how people identify themselves with you. Those who buy from Starbucks versus Blue Coffee and all those things, that have very different values and kind of interests. So you just want to be specific on what your values and vision and mission are. Another example is Ben and Jerry's. They have been taking clear stance around LGBTQ rights and climate change. And so, again, another example of how you can, as a brand, take a clear stance. Another way to look at it is also on the charity side. Tom's Shoes is famous for what they did with 1 for 1. They started donating one shoe per shoe purchase, per pair of shoes purchased. And so with this philanthropic work, you're going to see people, when they are making that purchasing decision, they're going to have that extra layer of feeling good about their purchase, because they see a tangible impact that comes from their purchase. And I've seen it, like I used to use AG shampoo and hair care products, and they would do also a percentage for like supporting female businesses and so on. So like stuff like that makes you feel good. I mean, it could be good or bad. Do they really do it or not? That's questionable. But in terms of like it working, it actually works properly. There was
and Ben and Jerry's have been doing it consistently since they started in 1978. So it was like they were sort of one of the first brands to be concerned about all of the environment and social issues, and being very kind of just open. We're socially liberal, vocal hippies that sell ice cream, and and when they first started, everyone was like, okay, what is this? And then now they're everywhere and people love them, and so it's beginning, if you can either it's important to start with it, I think, but then also you can always adapt as long as you're not sort of greenwashing. If you're just doing it to placate, people will find out, and that will
Yeah, I
backfire.
mean, not all of them, but some of these brands we're talking about um, have had controversial stories coming from them. So you have to be very mindful of all these steps. So we talk about touch points. If the consumers find out from another touch point that these things don't match, then your authenticity will be under question. So, for example, with these Tom's shoes, I remember watching a documentary, someone saying that a lot of these shoes are not necessarily fitting the kids in Africa, and so they're just like accumulated in a corner and nobody's using them. So, like, is it really a good idea to like send the exact same thing over there? Like stuff like that. So just be mindful of the overall journey and overall experience and overall decisions that you're making, because these days, because with the social media, people can take picture and record everything, and immediately things can go viral. So you want to be very mindful of every decision. And another example, like what you said, later you can incorporate it. Like Adidas, they had a partnership with Parley, so they can create a line of sneakers, bless you, with materials from ocean pollution, to talk about the importance of recycling, educate the consumers on all that. I mean, again, I don't know if that falls into the greenwashing or it was really something that they incorporated it and it continued. I'm not sure about the recycling activities that Adidas does, but it's a great step towards a great mission. And you know how oceans are getting more and more polluted. So stuff like that, it could be charity, it could be environmental impact, that stuff that you can do, and all of these can motivate people to consider your brand in this very crowded space. And last example I want to talk about is Everlane. Everlane is a line of clothing mostly for women, and that was also a little bit of controversial. So they had this concept of radical transparency, and they would put on their website, I don't know, I haven't checked recently if they still have it, but like they would tell you like the breakdown of the price of each item, like how much was the material, how much was the labor, and how much was the transportation and water and all that. So like they break it down properly, so you as a user or consumer know exactly what you're getting and where the money goes. And they even talk about the type of supply chain they're using, and all of these are very questionable when we're talking about fashion, because we know how there's not enough transparency and labor laws and a lot of challenges that is happening in the fashion industry. And so with this, Everlane targeted again younger generation, and they were pretty successful until later people found out that there was a lot of numbers were made of, and they're not necessarily the right things. But again, we're telling you the good and bad, so you're mindful of like what you can do. You can be more transparent, you can be taking social or environmental stance and do actions around it, but just be mindful that you need to do it, all of this authentically.
Yeah, I think that is really important, to be authentic and effectively communicate. I think that a lot of these digital channels and brands, some of the um, some of the things are miscommunication, or some things are on purpose, like even like the privacy thing, like because people aren't upfront about privacy, or aren't upfront about how your data is being used. I think that being transparent in many different ways is important. And and I would say, like, for perhaps things they were overly ambitious at Everlane. I think that you know, uh, some statements were that they were using not AI, but sort of predicting, like it got to be too much to do it for every for every piece of clothing. So on average, something like this does that, so then it didn't actually match up, so trying to cut corners and then having someone say liar, liar, pants on fire. And then, so it's like, those are bigger than marketing decisions or PR decisions. Those are like business decisions. And I think
communication.
Communicate. And one thing that we didn't talk about in the first study, which is important, we did talk about the active listening, but the idea of having a feedback loop, like understanding, and because listening is important, but like, how are you collecting that data? How are you listening? How are you respecting people's privacy and still listening and personalizing? How are you transparent about that? And then, and then your response, like in reviews and response time is very important. So, creating experiences and creating a feedback loop. And one of the things that I think about a lot is how to build in that feedback loop. And I think that some of the new chatbots and new things that are coming out allows for a much more robust way of collecting that feedback.
Yeah, and I think I have heard a lot of stories about these consumer brands that kind of failed in responding properly, or even like you would think maybe if the consumer would reach out to the customer service, then the customer service is trained to give the right answer. But these days, with this omni-channel, multi-touch point experiences that we're talking about, you have to train everybody. A lot of times I see these stories on Instagram, social media, that you send a DM like in response to a story that the brand posted. And then you send a DM, and then the person who is managing social media is not trained properly or is not aligned with values and responds something that it screws everything up. And or like you see sometimes like the founder of the company or like the face of the brand is making a personal comment on their personal account and stuff like that. Like, this is why when we talk about like this holistic thing, is not just on your website, it's not just on your marketplace and e-commerce. Like, you literally need to look at every touch point and make sure everything is perfect and aligned with what you are putting out. Because if it's not, that's where lack of authenticity comes in. And consumers are just waiting for those examples. There's an account on Instagram. I'm not sure if there are on other platforms that the same. It's called Estee Laundry. Have you heard of it, Noreen?
No, what? Estee Laundry?
Like Estee Lauder. I think it's kind of.
I thought
you
meant
they tried to like
Etsy, the site laundry, like was just
like Estee
selling
Laundry
their
or something.
dirty underwear or something.
Maybe I'm not pronouncing it properly, but there is a whole account that all they do, and they're not necessarily revealing their identities behind this account, but all they do is to find these gaps in starting with beauty products and beauty brands, and then later expanded to all sorts of consumer brands. So if you just follow them, you will see so many of these stories of like founders making comments that are not aligned with the brand values, or just how the DMs are handled in the social media with a lot of these brands. And it just literally creates that cancel culture that we hear a lot. And a lot of times they just lose all the hard work that they have put in to build up this loyalty. And so again, it's very important to like check out the reviews, properly respond to DMs, align everyone with your values, and technology is there to help you as well.
Yeah, I hope we're not overwhelming people, because this really is a fun, creative process. I mean, yes, there's all these pitfalls that you can fall into, but the wonderful thing about creating a brand is creating, a community and loyalty and being aligned. And when it falls into place and it's really working, it can be really fun, and these kinds of experiences, whether they're online or offline or native advertising, um,
Yeah, and I
really.
wanted to get deeper into like some of the immersive experiences and all that, but I think we focused more on the personalization. So just to end that conversation, so
Yes.
creating this, like using these AI technologies and using this, super personalized ways of, contacting the user in different touch points. Now it impacts more than ever because this audience is a lot more conscious about their values and make decision with their values, and they're much more informed and they have a lot more options. So it's just the perfect and almost the only way to survive in this market. And so we will be talking more about these in our future sessions. Noreen, what are the other sessions that we have coming up? Like, can we just quickly go over like what we have coming up for the audience?
Well, I think sure, we're gonna. I don't have that right in front of me exactly.
Yeah, but we will be going deeper into different ways to help you guys, whether you're a creator or brand or
Yeah. So well, what I want to give to the audience is, if you're a creator and or or a brand, both. We mostly focused on brands today, but if you're a creator creating content, you still need to think about all these things and have these touch points to get people to follow you and building audience. And we are about immersive experiences and new technologies, but how to use them practically, and have impact on your own brand cycle and as a creator, like what to do. So we're going to be talking these high level discussions, and then we're going to be really giving some information on how to do it. And if you have questions or if you would like to interact with us, you can reach out, or if there's something that you want us to cover, we'll cover it. But the whole idea is to help our audience understand these technologies in context, and what they can do to grow their brand or grow their business or grow their creative practice.
Exactly. And please comment, either during the show or after the show. We'll make sure to check it and get back to you and modify our programs and plans accordingly. We'll be also bringing the experts in different areas to help us have a much more strong content and information for you guys. Thank you so much, Noreen, for your time and the contribution. Thank you to our amazing audience for being with us. We do this every Tuesday at 2 p.m. EST, and we will be streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, wherever you would prefer. And thank you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.